When we get back to work, let's work to make sure it's not business as usual.
When these rooms are full, let's make room at the table.
When we open up,
Let's be more open.
Let's decide that the way it was
not the way it should be.
Let's make the opportunities
and the money equal.
Let's all be a part of the decisions.
let's recognize that women have the same rights as men.
Let's stand
Together.
Let's make things better.
Let's change.
Let's change.
Let's change.
Let's give 50% of the population 50% of the voice.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Marcus Allen's Road to the Big Game. I'm Jason Blue. Been looking forward to this day for months. I'm a husband to one, a dad to two, a passionate football lover, and I'm the VP GM of Small Business and Core Accounts here at Blue Shield. We are thrilled to have the most decorated football player of all time join us today. We're going to talk a little bit about accomplishments on and off the field, challenges along the way. I got to tell you, it is an incredible story. And when you see Marcus, you'll probably have the same reaction that I did, which is he looks like he could still strap on the pads and take the field today. Before we get started, on behalf of Blue Shield, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you to our members, our brokers, consultants, employers, prospects, providers, everyone working on the front line to help support Blue Shield in achieving our mission of creating a healthcare system that's worthy of our family and friends and sustainably affordable. Full disclosure, when this opportunity presented itself, I was thrilled and excited, as I mentioned, but I've never done this before. And man, I didn't realize that I would be so mesmerized by Marcus. So for those of you who are football fans, our guest really needs no introductions. But for those of you who may not be familiar with the illustrious career of Marcus Allen, let me just mention a few highlights. He is considered one of the greatest running backs, if not the greatest running back to ever play in the NFL. He was selected by the then LA Raiders in the first round of the '82 draft after completing an extraordinary career at USC, where he won the Heisman. He played for the Raiders for 11 years, helped them win Super Bowl XVIII before ending his career with the Kansas City Chiefs. And many of you know I'm a numbers guy, and these numbers are truly mind-blowing. He scored 145 touchdowns, including a then league record 123. He was the first NFL player to gain more than 10,000 rushing yards and 5,000 receiving yards during his career. He was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame in 2000 and the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2003. 2020 was much different for all of us. It did represent 100 years of NFL football and 150 years of college football. And in that time, there is only one player in history to win an award at every level: a high school state championship, a college national championship, the Heisman, Rookie of the Year, the NFL MVP, winning the Super Bowl MVP, and eventually being inducted into the Pro Football and College Hall of Fame. I'm so excited to chat with my first Hall of Famer. So please join me in welcoming football royalty, live from Atlanta, Marcus Allen. How you doing, Marcus?
Jason, that was pretty good. I'm doing great. Thank you very much for having me. And I certainly want to thank Blue Shield as well for providing access to high quality healthcare for so many people out there. I'm looking forward to today. Should be fun. Let's have a great time.
Thanks, Marcus. And we're headquartered in Oakland, so I've got a lot of questions from people who followed your career, starting in '84 and throwing names like Howie Long and Lyle Alzado. So excited to get to some of the NFL talk. Before we get started, one of the things you and I have in common is that we both grew up in San Diego. So thought we could just start by you sort of talking about your early football career, growing up and playing in San Diego and what that was like.
Well, guys, I was lucky enough to be born to, phenomenal parents, and in particular, and my mother was all, we can say enough about moms. We already know moms are like, they're great. They're like goddesses and stuff. But I had a dad that was just a phenomenal father, and he was really big into sports. And I remember the first game that he took us to was at Balboa Stadium at downtown San Diego. I don't know if many people remember. I went to a Charger game at a very early age, and certainly was captivated then. And then later on, I played in a Pop Warner football game at the age of 10 at halftime of a San Diego Charger game. So in addition to that, my dad worked on the stadium. He was a general contractor, and he worked on the stadium. So I was lucky enough to have some great moments in that stadium not only as a Pop Warner kid, but as a high schooler as well when we won the CIF championship. But it all started in San Diego, and I was inspired by going to a game, and it was in the early 60s. I may have been like 6 years old or something like that. And we went to a game, can't remember who they played, but it was the San Diego Chargers in downtown San Diego at Balboa Stadium.
Yeah, I don't know if there's at Balboa Stadium. I don't know when they changed the name. I think it's been a couple different names since then, but that certainly takes us back. One thing I was interested in, I know the audience is too, Marcus, we all remember you as a running back, right? You entered the NFL. Well, I would say you entered the Hall of Fame as a running back, but in your high school days, I think you played a few different positions. Can you just talk about, growing up and getting through those different positions and then eventually, kind of finding your way at that running back role?
Well, first of all, my first position was defensive back, and I sort of enjoyed tackling, hitting people at a very young age. And the person that I really admired then was Lim Barney. He was a defensive back for the Detroit Lions, who ended up going to the Hall of Fame. And as my career continued in the Pop Warner era, I played running back one time, and that was when I was 11 years old. I actually, at the risk of sounding conceited, I actually had a really, really good year. I think I scored 30 touchdowns, but I didn't play running back again. I always went back on the other side of the ball, which was defense. And I like, again, tackling and hitting people. And so for me, what happened when I got to high school, again, I started as a linebacker. I started my freshman year, and then my junior year, I played defensive back, safety. And then my senior year, my coach came to me and said, Marcus, listen here, I'd like for you to play quarterback. And I really did not want to, but, I thought about it and I said, nah, I don't want to do it. But he told me, go over there. And I did, right? And so what I did was when I got under center, I fumbled the ball like 8 times in a row on purpose. And the coach knew it. And he he kicked me off the team. And I remember walking to the locker room and taking a shower and then going home and saying, my dad is going to be livid. He's going to be so upset. He's going to come back and give this coach a few words. And when he finally got home, I told him what had happened. And then he said to me, well, that's between you two. And so I had to go back and, acquiesce and apologize, and sort of the rest is history. I started playing quarterback and ended up having a great year. We ended up winning the CIF championship game. And as a result of that, I don't want to go too far ahead, but as a result of that, I played both sides of the ball. That led me into, I'm sure you're going to ask me the question, how did I get to be a running back at USC? And it was a result of what happened in high school. And the story that I sort of reflect on, it's like sometimes, we have people that see things in us that we don't see in ourselves. And that coach actually saw something in me that I didn't know that I possessed at the time. And it certainly worked out in my favor.
Well, I guess so, Marcus. I think you made the right choice with your coaches to be a running back, and we don't call it conceited; we call it humble bragging. So feel free to keep throwing some more at that. When you were obviously in high school, standout athlete, I'm guessing that you were heavily recruited many different places. Can you take us back to why USC at the time and what really brought you to SC?
Well, I thought any kid growing up in Southern California, if you really loved football, SC was the only school. And if you really loved basketball, UCLA was the only school. And obviously I loved football. So from, many years, I remember watching some games in our black and white Magnavox. That's how far I'm going back, guys. And I don't know if anybody on this on this broadcast here is aware of a Magnavox TV. I mean, it's that hasn't been in existence in a long time. So That was a long time ago, but I fell in love with USC football then, watched it on television every opportunity that I got. And then when I had the opportunity to go there, I mean, it was, I just jumped at it.
Well, it's certainly been a place that's, an excellent program for a long, long time. Before we get into, your actual stats and what it was like at USC, one of the questions that I think, is a bit on the outside is around athletes getting paid for the NCAA. And traditionally that has not been allowed. And I think football is traditionally a sport where it's driving most of the revenue for those schools. And so many of the players feel like, hey, if I'm part of that, maybe I should also be enjoying some of those payments. So I'm just curious, from your perspective, do you think there should be a more formal way for these NCAA athletes to be getting paid?
I've thought about this long and hard. I think it's a very difficult. Yes, I do. Not to the extent or as much as most people would probably think that I would suggest, but I think it's difficult to apply fairly and honestly and universally around college football. It's interesting. We grew up in. Obviously, I grew up in Southern California and went to USC. And I remember at the time we got a stipend for $250 if we lived off campus. And, frankly, everybody wants to move off campus into apartment after their freshman year. And $250 in Los Angeles at that particular time wouldn't get you much. But in $250 in maybe Arkansas certainly would. So, I mean, how do you make it fair? How do you make it even? Those are the questions that I think that are important. I'd like to see young men graduate, get as much knowledge as they can. And so when I say pay them, I think they should make some amount of money that makes them comfortable, that at least allows them to say, hey, let me complete my education, as opposed to say, listen, I'm leaving financially, this doesn't work for me. I can certainly help my family. I can, help myself. And many kids leave early and really aren't in a position, in my opinion, to leave early. Maybe that extra year would certainly help them out. But this is something that's been talked about for a long time. And I don't think anybody's come to a conclusion or has a great answer about it.
Thanks, Marcus. I think that's fair, and it is a complicated issue. We deal with some of those inequities just in general, what we've seen through the pandemic with the health inequities, and we're an organization who's very conscious of making sure that it is equitable. So this is one of those other issues where there's a lot of.
When you think about it, excuse me for cutting you off, but yes, they do bring in tons of revenue for the school that really actually filters out through the entire athletic department. And, and most of these guys are, the poorest kids on campus. They come from economically and socially challenged communities. And when they get to school, I mean, most of these kids are probably wearing the same clothes or, the big man on campus and don't, have enough money to take out a girl on a date or anything like that. So yes, there should be some money, I think, appropriated for them. But again, I think it's a difficult, to make it fair. And, because obviously I talked about the cost of living in one part of the country as opposed to the cost of living in another. And do you treat football players different than basketball players, or do you treat the women the same, or the baseball program, which doesn't bring in quite amount of the same revenue that the football team does? I mean, because actually the football program brings in the most money, most revenue that helps the athletic department. So how do you balance that out? How do you make it equal? How do you make it fair? That's the big challenge.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to some solutions going forward. I think we've all been asking, some of the same questions. So back to, kind of football at SC, Marcus. So you get to USC, You come in as a freshman. I think you were a backup to Charlie White, maybe at that point. And you guys end up winning the NCAA. So you come in as a freshman and win the championship. Talk about a little about, what that was like.
Well, I'm going to correct you, Jason. I actually started, and I was recruited as I started as a defensive back, but I was recruited as a DB. And what happened was I think, the first couple of days of training camp, all the running backs behind Charlie White got hurt. And so John Robinson, because I obviously played quarterback and ran the ball in high school, he asked me if I would come over and play running back. And I jumped at the opportunity. I mean, who wouldn't? It's the University of Southern California. It is the most, recognized position in college football, the SC running back. And when I had the opportunity, I said yes. And so that's how it started for me. My freshman year, I was basically a special teams player. I went in a few games and did some promising things. So that I think felt like they made the right decision. But I was really sort of a special teams player and trying to make an impact there. And but my freshman year, winning the national championship was it was amazing. It was something that it was just awesome. It was just awesome. So it was. You expect those things to happen, or you want those things to happen, but when they do, it's like all you do is say, you're just blessed. That's all it is.
So you obviously win the national championship freshman year, have some good sophomore, junior, and then you really get to your senior year where I think you won the Maxwell Award, Walter Camp, Pac-10, Player of the Year, of course, the Heisman. Tell us a little bit about your senior year. Then I did think I read somewhere that Ronnie Lott was maybe your roommate at one point. Maybe that was a little later. But just talk about what it was like that senior year.
Well, let me address the junior year before I go into my senior year, because I learned a lot from my junior year. That was actually my first year playing running back officially. Prior to that, I was a fullback, and I really don't call that a running back. It's just really you're just blocking, right, for Charles White. And so actually, my junior year was my first year playing running back on the college level, and I had a pretty good year. I rushed for 1,500 and something yards. And I felt like I really didn't know what I was doing, though. And that was the first time I actually heard boos. I didn't make any, incredible runs or do anything that was, that really sort of brought people to their feet. It was just really, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. I was working hard. And I think what people didn't understand was I was just sort of getting to know the position. But again, I heard these whispers, these boos. And people were saying, maybe, he's not the guy. Maybe they should have somebody else in there. So what I did based on that was, I approached my senior year with great intentions of becoming the best player in the country. And what I felt I didn't know was the game. I knew how to play, but I didn't know what everybody was doing. And this is why I always say there's two types of players, or two types of people that apply, to every aspect of life. Those who know and those who don't know. And the ones who know the most usually go the furthest. So what I end up knowing, from spring ball and summer camp and stuff like that is I end up knowing everything about the position. I knew defensively where everybody was. I knew offensively on every single play, what my guard was doing, my tackle was doing with, I was calling audibles before even the quarterback called audibles. I understood the whole game. So from 1,500 yards, I gained 2,382. And that was really most on knowledge too. I had the physicality. The knowledge made me just completely confident in what I was doing. So so it was a big year, and I was the first running back in college football history to gain over 2,000 yards rushing, and that was big. But it was a phenomenal year, and what can I say? It's since been broken, but to be the first was always, I think, it's an honor. It's certainly a pleasure.
Marcus, something caught my ear there when you talked about, how you made a bit of an adjustment and started to learn, the whole game, and maybe your preparation changed or was modified a bit. Can you just talk a little bit about, how you prepared mentally and physically for games, and maybe how that was adjusted, so to speak, after, hearing some of these things that you were hearing your junior year?
Well, my junior year, again, I was just trying to run hard. I really didn't understand the process in front of me. I didn't understand if there was an over defense or an under defense, and I'd have to. And everybody has a different blocking assignment, in that particular defense that we face. So once I learned that, and again, I think it's just knowledge, just being smart, really sort of trying to become an expert in your field, really focusing on the intellectual part as opposed to just the physical part, because I was physically certainly up to the task. I know I've been blessed with certain qualities and attributes that a lot of people don't have. So, and I never took that for granted. And I worked extremely hard at it, but I also wanted to be the smartest player in the field. And that's what really sort of helped me out.
Thanks for that. Yeah, it just strikes me that preparation, no matter business, sport, really becomes the key. So that resonated with me. So,
well, Jason,
go ahead.
Well, just real quickly, what happens is part of that is sort of visualization too, right? I used to visualize a game before it even happened and stuff, but understanding what's in front of you, it to anticipate, but it's never a guarantee. For example, I made some incredible runs, sort of anticipating where the ball's supposed to go, but it ended up going someplace else. But that's all part of knowledge, and then the rest of that is just part of instinct. So, but you have to sort of, to me, visualizing games. I'm gonna tell you a story. When I was 10 years old, I decided what side of the television set I wanted to be on. I said I wanted to play and not watch, right? And then I said I wanted to win the Heisman Trophy. I actually had a speech written at 11 years old. And I used to stand in the mirror and say, I want to thank my mom and dad and the University of Southern California. I used to do that. So that was part of my visualization, and it worked. So I was actually living the secret before the book was written. I was projecting all those things to happen, and I worked hard at it, and they came to fruition.
Thanks, Marcus. Being a golfer, I try to often visualize, but for some reason my ball probably doesn't go where I want it to. Like the ball went where you wanted it to when you played football. So a little bit different. I know, obviously, many folks remember the famous run at Super Bowl XVIII, and I'm guessing that run was not drawn up like it went down to your earlier point. But can you just talk a little bit about, actually getting to Super Bowl XVIII, like the physical point of getting to the game, and then just what it was like when, you went left, made that, U-turn and saw this pretty big hole up the middle. And I'm guessing in your mind, you also knew, I'm faster than most of these folks. And so just talk a little bit about what that was like.
Okay. Well, first tonight I had the greatest night's sleep you can possibly have. And I remember getting up, putting my clothes on and walking downstairs to go eat breakfast. And I just felt like my feet never touched the ground. And I just sort of smiled at everything. and it sort of took everything in. And I remember going to eat breakfast and just talking with, some of the players and everything. And I can tell, they were excited, and everything was, for me, was just like, it was no big deal, even though this was the Super Bowl. This is my first Super Bowl. And I don't know if you heard the story, but after breakfast, we ended up driving. We had rent cars, most time players catch the bus to the stadium, or they catch a cab back then, right? They used to catch cabs if they wanted to go earlier. And so we had rental cars while we were there. And for some reason, I thought, that if we jump in a rental car, that we can just drive in and get to the stadium. Well, my teammate Otis McKinney and I, we jumped in the car and we drove to the stadium, and we pulled up to the parking attendant. And I said, "Excuse me, ma'am, where do the players park?" And she says, "Well, do you have a parking pass?" And I said, "No." She says, "Well, you can't get in." I said, "No, ma'am, seriously. I'm playing for the Raiders. I'm playing in today's game, and it's important that I get into into the stadium to play." She says, "Well, I don't care who you play for. If you don't have a parking pass, you can't get in." And so I just sort of looked at Otis McKinney, and I backed the car up and pulled it against the curb. And I looked at him again, and he looked at me, and it must have been like mental telepathy. And I grabbed my bag, he grabbed his bag, and we took off running to the locker room. And to this day, I don't know what happened to the rental car. So then I get to the stadium, and guys are just playing cards, or guys are listening to music, and I'm just smiling the whole time. And just was comfortable as you could get. I remember, it may have been like the third play or something, maybe the second time that I touched the ball, I fumbled the ball, and I just saw it roll away from me in slow motion, and my fullback Frank Hawkins jumped on it, and I remember just saying, it was no big deal. I know most people would have panicked after fumbling the ball in the first carry or second carry of the Super Bowl. And to me, it was just no big deal. Nothing was a big deal that day. I was just as calm, and, my awareness was just off the charts. I mean, I felt like I had eyes in every direction, on the back of my head. I mean, on the top of my head, I just felt like that I could just see everything. And it was 12 seconds to go in the third quarter. It was a Bob Trea, which is a power play off the left side. And I got in a really poor position outside the guard who was pulling to go up and off the double team and block the linebacker. And I was in a poor relationship with him, so I couldn't get back underneath. And the safety was coming up, Ken Coffey, and I saw him, and I hit my brakes and made a U-turn, and sort of the rest is history. And from that point on, it was just time travel.
Well, that was definitely one of the greatest runs. And I think if you go on Google and just type in greatest run, Marcus, it probably still comes up. So it gave me chills to watch it again. One of the things I noticed was when you scored, your teammates sort of huddled around you and embraced you. And as we watch the NFL today, it's much different, which is generally that individual player would celebrate that touchdown, sometimes with their team, sometimes not with their team. I think that was maybe against the rules when you played. But if you could do it over again, would you celebrate touchdowns?
No, I wouldn't. My dad had this little plaque, and I can't remember verbatim what it says, but it was something to the extent that be careful of the words you say. You may have to eat them one day or something like that. I can't remember completely, and so I was always very judicious in what I said on the field, and I always didn't want to be a hot dog and that come back and bite me. And that wasn't who I was anyway. And I also remember Jim Brown just saying, "Don't be cool out there." So, scoring a touchdown and trying to celebrate is not something that was a part of my DNA. I just wanted to, get in the end zone, and certainly have your teammates celebrate you. Doing that is is clearly memorable, but I just never was one of those guys who watched Soul Train and worked on a move and then decided to go out when they score a touchdown and execute that move on the field. That was not me. I never saw myself doing that. I always wanted to act like I'd been there before.
Yeah, it's not the first time, right?
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit, maybe, switching a bit off the field? You obviously reached the pinnacle of football at really all levels. But even after you won the Super Bowl, you continued to peak against folks in the league who were, big, strong, fast, and young. So I'd just be interested, what did it take for you kind of mentally and physically, and what was your, routine like to enable that success?
Well, my routine after every season was to do very little. The one thing that I concerned myself with was never to gain a lot of weight. During the off season, a lot of guys, a lot of bigger guys, their weight would fluctuate back and forth, and I knew that put a lot of stress on their body. And that's one thing that I didn't want to do. I gave my body a lot of rest. As opposed to today's environment, guys, they take seems like they take weeks off and they're back at it again. So I think a lot of injuries are as a result of just never allowing your body to rest, because it's a mentally and physically challenging game, and you need to get away from it at times and stuff. So during the off season, that was really important to me. And then when I started to work out, because I, really didn't gain no more than 5 pounds or so, getting back into shape was really easy for me. And the one thing that I believed in was working hard. I believe a free lunch costs $1.99. That means nobody gives you anything free. You're going to have, if you want it, you got to go work for it. So I worked a lot harder than I think people realized that I did. Some people say, that it's natural. Yes, it was natural, the way I played, but I worked hard. I sacrificed many summers and did a lot of things that a lot of people didn't see to stay in shape, and because I wanted to be one of the greatest players that ever played. I didn't want to be a guy that's just played in the league and saying I made it. I had a goal to be, one of the most recognized and best players that ever played. And so that takes a lot of work. That's the road less traveled. I mean, that's the narrow path that you have to take. You can't do what everybody else is doing. I always took great care of myself. I didn't drink, didn't do any drugs or anything like that. I was dedicated to my sport. I loved it. And I was passionate about it and wanted to be the best I could possibly be.
Well, it definitely paid off. So some good decisions there. Couple more questions, Marcus. I know we're getting to the end of time here, but before we transition to more maybe personal, can you just what's the best advice you've ever received or given that maybe sticks out at you? You mentioned your dad, obviously, you're a coach, but what's something that really sticks out for you in terms of best advice received and given?
I think the greatest advice that I've had is that if you really want something, if you're really passionate about it, if you really, sort of live and breathe it, there's not much that can stand in your way. So I really challenge people's convictions. People say they want to do this, they want to do that. I mean, do you really want to do that? Do you really want it badly enough? Do you really, are you going to work hard enough and give it everything it deserves? A lot of people don't do that. They think they want to give that. They think they have what it takes to do that. I was driven. I used to do some crazy stuff. I used to push my dad's car and in combat boots and stuff. I used to do all kinds of crazy things. But again, I had a destination that I wanted to reach, and I felt like that I could get there. At every level, I felt, even in Pop Warner, I felt like, oh, I'm actually pretty good. I'm actually better than most of the Pop Warner players. Then I got to high school. It was, you know what? I'm the best player in high school. And then I get to, college, and, now I'm the best player in college. And so, I mean, I felt going into the National Football League that there was really nothing stopping me. The only thing that could stop me, was me giving, if the field was level and, didn't have any opportunities that I was denied or anything like that, that I could do anything. And I didn't let anybody tell me differently. I had plenty of naysayers. Marcus, don't go to USC. You'll never amount to this. You never amount to that. And I knew differently. I knew, I'm lucky to have great parents that instilled some wonderful things in me, and I believed them. I had cheerleaders at home. I really had cheerleaders at home. I mean, that made sure that they supported me, and they knew that if I put in the work, that I can make my dreams come true.
Wow. Thanks, Marcus. That was, man, just love talking to you. You could continue this for hours. I know we're on a little tight timeline. Just a couple last questions. One of the things that really intrigued us about you is that you share a lot of the same values that we do as a company: human, honest, courageous, seem to be pretty involved in the community. I know the NFL in general has a different type of maybe social responsibility than they did, 20, 30 years ago, or it's at least more important, more of a priority today than it ever has been. Can you tell us a little bit about, what you do to give back and how you're engaged in the communities that you live in and maybe have worked in?
Well, first of all, I think what clearly helps me is, I believe just because I, maybe have achieved more than someone doesn't make me better than someone. And so I try never to put myself above anyone. I think that's important. I think secondly, I think you're rich by what you give and you're poor by what you keep. And for me, I was brought up correctly, and I feel like I've been blessed so many times that only an idiot would think it was just him, For me, it's by the grace of God that I was able to do all these things. So naturally, it's easy to give back and try to help people. I'm involved in Fresh Start. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Provides surgical gifts to kids that are either born with deformity or tragic accident or something like that. Been involved with them for a while. The Illustrious Foundation with the Sports for Good Foundation that tries to really sort of reach kids through sports and get them off the streets. Been involved in Ronnie Lott's charity, All Stars Helping Kids Foundation for many, many years. And so I just feel blessed, man. I feel lucky, and I live with gratitude. So it makes that very easy for me to do. Again, I feel like you're rich by what you give and you're poor by what you keep. So, whether it's just knowledge or time or, funding or anything like that, it's certainly something that I try to do.
Man, you are the most humble, most decorated NFL or football player. So we really appreciate you. Couple last little rapid fire, Marcus, before we let you go.
Sure.
Brady or Mahomes?
Oh, come on, man. Well, is that a rapid fire question, or is that just a listen here? Well, first of all, I used to joke around and say this, Jason, right? But this may apply to Tom and and Mahomes. Tom may be the greatest, but Patrick is certainly the latest, right? So listen here. I mean, I see the handing of the baton. It's going to be, I think, illustrated in this game. You got two of the best. One may go down to be the greatest player, a quarterback that's ever played the game. I played with Joe Montana, and I think was amazing. But Patrick Mahomes, boy, the things that he can do, I mean, the way he throws the ball, I mean, from a variety of angles, and he plays with such, just confidence. I mean, he's just, I just love the way he plays. I just love the head on his shoulders and stuff. And if he makes a mistake, it's no big deal. He comes back and pretends like it never happened. And you really got to tip your hat to somebody like that. How diplomatic was that? Did I ever answer the question?
I don't probably not, but it's a tough. I won't ask you Brady versus Heisman, because that might be even more difficult for you. But in terms of the game, Marcus, give us just what's your game prediction?
Well, this is a tough call right here. The momentum is clearly Tampa's and Tampa's corner. I mean, they have been, playing phenomenally through the playoffs, and I don't think anybody expected them to run the gauntlet like they did. In addition, they're playing at home, so they certainly have a lot of confidence and a lot of momentum. But Kansas City is a formidable opponent. I mean, we all know what they can do offensively. They have the fastest player in the game, Tyreek Hill. They get the best tight end in the game. They are loaded, and offensively, they can do really whatever they want to do. Defensively, that's my concern for Kansas City, because offensively, the Buccaneers have been playing well. So I think it's going to be a close game. Do I know who's going to win? I hope Kansas City does. That's who I'm pulling for. I had 5 great, wonderful years there, and I love everything about the organization, the Hunt family, just tremendous people, and the fans there, just the best. That's what I'd like to see, but I got to tell you, I don't know, man. This is going to be a close one.
Yeah, I think that's, a lot of both sides on this one. And I'm sure you wish you were, in Tampa for the game, seeing how in 1984, that was a pretty special place for you, since that was the place of the run. So I want to just say thank you. This was such an honor for me to get to spend some time with you. And just what a way to get ready for the Super Bowl, really talking to one of the all-time greats. So thank you for being candid, talking about your career achievements, off and on the field. And just want to say thanks to all the guests who joined us today. And on behalf of the entire Blue Shield team, just want to wish everyone great success this year, a happy and healthy 21, and we will all get through this together. So thank you, Marcus. Really, really appreciate you and your time. And thanks to everyone out there. Hope everyone has a great rest of the day.
God bless everybody.